Barry in Concord, North Carolina. Hey, Barry, what's on your mind today? Thanks for listening to Sirius XM.
All right, Tom, I listen to you religiously. I'm a moderate conservative, and I just wanted to ask you to do one thing. When you mention the word free, and you refer to the countries of Finland, Denmark, Sweden, countries that are civilized, you also need to tell your audience that these people, these citizens of these countries, pay anywhere between 60 and 70% of their income in taxes to have free stuff. So free comes with a price, and I think you owe it to your audience to bring that up. And then secondly,
yeah, well, hang on just a second.
As a moderate conservative,
the average,
I support.
Wait a second. Just, I just can't let a statement that's not true stand. And I encourage you to do your homework on this, Barry. We did our show for 2 weeks from Denmark. I don't think the tax laws have changed much in the 4 or 5 years since we did our show from there. I had a whole bunch of Danish politicians on, the majority of them conservatives, and in fact, I think I only had 2 or 3 politicians that I agreed with on the program, or that that would consider themselves progressives or liberals. In Denmark, if you are working at McDonald's, the minimum wage there is $18.50 an hour, as I recall. Yes, they pay more in taxes, but and the top, more or less, the top tax rate for people in the upper middle class is around 54%. The average tax rate for people in the middle class is around 35%. And at the very top end, the taxes can go up to 80% or more if you're, after you make your first $2 or $3 or $4 million. I don't remember the exact numbers, but the point is that for working people, regardless of the top tax rate or regardless of the tax rate that's paid, working people are paid based on take-home pay. So in the United States, for example, every time there has been a tax cut on working people in the United States, and you can go back over, and I've written several articles about this, you can easily Google, and I'm not the only one. And there's entire books on economics that are devoted to this. Go back over the last 50 years in the United States. Whenever taxes on working people have gone down, so has pay in the subsequent years, in the 3 years following. Why? Because the employers know that the working people have more money in their pockets as a consequence of their after-tax income going up because their taxes went down. And the consequence of that is that the employers dial them back because they know what people are willing to work for. That is to say, they know what the wage, what a particular job, what the average pay is for a particular job. On the other hand, when taxes on working people go up, and again, look at the history of the United States, because you will find that they've gone both up and down. When taxes on working people go up, wages go up because their take-home pay has shrunk and they can't work for that job any longer at that pay. And now that rule, which most people just common sense and logic would indicate that that's how it works. And in fact, that is how it works. That's why in Denmark, they pay $18.54 or 45 cents an hour, whatever it is, at McDonald's, as starting wage at McDonald's. In Germany, starting wage for McDonald's is around $14 an hour because they've got high taxes too, but they're not as high as Denmark's. Here in the United States, starting wage at McDonald's is probably 10 or 15 bucks. I think they've increased it somewhat in the last 3 or 4 years, but up in probably 5, 6 years ago, it was $7 an hour. So, but with no taxes. Now, let me just put one codicil on this, and then you can talk all you want. The other point, though, is for people who have control over their own wage, for the rich, for the very wealthy, for the CEOs, for people who live on investments, for people who have control over their own wages. Whether taxes go up or down does not have much effect on their wage because they can control their wages. So for the top, say, 5 or 10% of the economically of people, when taxes go down, their take home goes up, and it stays up, and because they're not operating in a marketplace unless they're at the junior executive level. And when taxes go up, their take home pay goes down, and that's why 40 years ago, before Reagan dropped the top tax rate from 74% to 25% in the 1980s, before the 1980s, average CEOs in the United States from the 1930s until the 1980s took 30 times what their lowest paid employee took on average. Right now, it's around 600 times what the lowest paid employee takes. Why? Because the top tax rate went down. It used to be on your first $2-3 million in today's dollars, you would pay 25, 35, 45%, and then it started going above 50%. When it started going above 50%, people said, okay, I'll cap my salary at that level, and we'll reinvest this money in the business. And then once Reagan dropped that top tax rate below 50%, those people just started saying, hey, I'm going to take all I can get. And what do you have? An explosion of income inequality and wealth inequality. And essentially, it's very corrosive. It's destructive to society. Now, to you, Barry.
All right. Well, Tom, I think you kind of missed my point here, is that the people there in those countries, I have visited these countries, spent time talking to them. I've talked to school teachers. I've talked to people who work there. And these people pay a back in Finland. I'm just using those 3 or 4 countries there. These people pay a base tax of anywhere from 30 to 35%, and then they have a 25% VAT tax in most all of those countries. So the real tax rate that they pay is somewhere between 60 and 68%. I've also called the tax administration in Finland and Denmark and got them to verify, and at one time they told me the tax rate was 72% in Denmark.
That would be a top
so these
marginal
people
rate.
are paying a tax. Now, you ask the people who live there, how do you feel about cradle-to-grave care for your education, Medicare? They say, a school teacher told me, well, we're the 4th generation, so we're used to it. So we're used to paying 62% or 64% in taxes. So, but
you know how much Finland pays their teachers, Barry?
Do I?
Finland pays their teachers and their police, by the way. They pay them about the same as they pay their doctors. Teachers, police, and doctors all make a little over $100,000 a year in Finland.
That's fine. I don't question that. You can.
So,
I'm just
so after taxes, they're taking home $50,000 a year.
States, you have to put a price tag on this for the citizens of the United States.
Right.
In order for us to have free education and free medical, there's going to be a cost involved. There's no such thing as free.
You're right.
That's my point. So, but anyway.
Right.
And
but you've got right now, Barry, here in the United States, because Reagan dropped that top tax rate below 50%, you have 3 men who own as much wealth as the bottom half of the United States. As 180 million people, you got 3 men who own as much wealth as the bottom half of the United States.
I don't disagree with that.
You've got 600 people who own as much wealth as the bottom 90% of the United States.
I find that true. All right. Secondly, I just wanted to tell you I will not be voting for Donald Trump. I'm a moderate conservative who supports some sort of universal health care for all citizens of the United States and willing to pay a price for that. So I support raising Social Security tax to pay the citizens who are retiring a decent wage. So I am a moderate conservative. I tip
my hat to you, Barry. I tip my hat to you.